Hey guys, Chris here, and I'm Ukrainian Canadian. Today is October 29th, 2024, and let's get to the news and updates happening in Ukraine and Russia, shall we? So let's first talk about some good news in Luhansk city, because it appears that the Ukrainians have successfully destroyed a large ammunition depot in the city of Luhansk. And this has been confirmed by the governor, Artyom Lysogor, and he confirms that basically this ammunition depot that was hit is going to hurt Russian logistics as well. Let's not forget that Luhansk city is very important for the Russians. It serves as a railway hub. They have, as you can see here, probably multiple ammunition depots within the city, and also multiple repair facilities where they're repairing tanks and BMPs and then bringing them to the front lines. So Luhansk city is an important logistics hub for the Russians. So hopefully Ukraine will be able to strike more, and I'll talk about it at the end of the video in my last slide, because this is going to be very important to force Russia on the negotiating table as well. There is also another news today from Chechnya, where the Ukrainians also struck a special forces university. It caught fire following a UAV attack by the Ukrainians, and this university is really important because this is where they train snipers, specialized units that then go and fight in Ukraine and terrorize the Ukrainian population. So overall, some great attacks by the Ukrainians overnight, and also a few days ago the Ukrainians struck another distillery in Russia. So they're now also targeting specific plants and factories. They're producing also alcohol-based products for the military and also ammunition depots. So this is really targeting Russia's war abilities. Now, the other thing I need to talk about is South Korea, North Korea, of course. We know that we got the confirmation this week from the NATO Secretary General, Mr. Rutte, that North Korean troops are already in Russia. They're already deployed in Kursk. There could be up to 3,000. Now we're anticipating that there's going to be probably 12 to 13,000 North Korean troops at a certain point in Russia. And it's also been confirmed that South Korea is planning to visit Kiev to discuss obviously North Korean involvement in the conflict, and also possible cooperation, or a cooperation, not possible, but cooperation with the Ukrainians. I've talked about it briefly in my last video on Friday, how important it is that South Korea gets involved here, because now there is a direct correlation between Russia's success and North Korean success on the Korean Peninsula. We understand that Russia is transferring technology, resources, money to the North Korean regime as a result of them receiving weapons and troops to fight in Ukraine against the Ukrainians. And so a Russian success means North Korean success, and North Korean success means a weakened South Korea, or at least a South Korea that is under more threat by the North Korean regime, that becomes far more stronger because it now receives technologies, weapons perhaps from the Russians that they didn't have previously. So this brings South Korea under direct threat as well. So it is absolutely essential that they do get involved, not by only providing experts and interrogators, as we've mentioned last week. This is what South Korea is currently planning to do, but also weapons and resources. And as you can see here, one thing that would be really game-changing for the Ukrainians, perhaps next year Ukraine could receive them, I'm hoping that could be one of those decisions by South Korea, is providing the Hyunmoon long-range missiles. So these are the Hyunmoon 3s. They have different variants, but the one that has the longest range is 3,000 kilometers. These are huge ranges, and that would provide unlimited range for the Ukrainians to strike pretty much any facility within Russia, any arsenals, military factories, oil depots, doesn't matter. Ukraine would have pretty much unlimited range to strike Russia. Of course, that really depends on how much I think North Korea and Russia escalate the situation. Also depends if North Korea will also get involved in the Korean Peninsula by doing provocations. But I think that South Korea will certainly start providing Ukraine within the next few months some weaponry. They don't have the choice at this stage, and I think that Putin really miscalculated here by thinking that South Korea is just going to sit idle and not really do much. At least I'm really hoping that Seoul is going to be more decisive than other countries, like unfortunately the United States, which has still not given permission to Ukraine to use the ATACMS or other long-range missiles to strike Russia. That could very well change, and I'm really hoping that after the US elections, by early December, late December, the Biden administration will be decisive and will want to save his legacy, because right now it's been a complete mess, a catastrophe. The Biden administration has really failed at deterring the axis of evil, whether it be Iran, Russia, China, North Korea. They've grown far more stronger in the last few years. And of course, what Putin will continue doing in the next few weeks, as he has done today, is doing more little nuclear bluffing and nuclear saber rattling. Today, he conducted another nuclear training drill, saying that Russia's nuclear preparedness has never been so great, that they've modernized their entire nuclear capabilities. And we also know that Russia failed one of their nuke tests last month, where the Sarmat missile completely vaporized the testing facility. So again, I believe this is a bluff, because Russia simply doesn't want to be taking any chances, knowing that their nuke could blow up. There's a 50% chance that it could blow up on Russian soil. But we need to understand that this is the playbook that Putin is going to be utilizing forever. He knows that this is something that the West is scared of. And, you know, whenever he sees that the West is about to take a big, important decision in supporting Ukraine, he starts doing the nuclear saber rattling. And last but not least, let's talk about how we can force Russia on the negotiating table, to the negotiating table. Right now, we know, guys, and I've been very honest and unbiased with you, Ukraine doesn't have the momentum, especially on the front line. Russia's gaining a lot of ground in Donbass. Let's just take a quick look on the map. You guys can see that the situation in Donbass continues to deteriorate for the Ukrainians. Russia has captured pretty much 50% of Solidove. As you can see, Ukraine hangs on like a northwestern side of the city. So likely that the Ukrainians will have to pull out. That's just my assessment. There's also a lot of pressure right now around Kurakhove and Kurakhivka, and overall in Vuhledar, the situation is not good. You can see that the Russians are slowly trying to form a pocket around Kurakhove, which is a very big Ukrainian stronghold. This is where they've been destroying effectively hundreds, if not thousands, of Russian armored vehicles in the last few years. It's been a very, very bloody battle, especially for the Russians here, as they try to continue pushing here towards Kurakhove. But the situation just doesn't look good in Donbass right now. So Russia has all the momentum. What would they want right now? What would Putin want to go on the negotiating table? He has more to lose on the negotiations than just continuing on. And he knows that he has the momentum, because we also have the US elections with the possibility of Trump being elected. And we already know that Trump is definitely going to be more pro-Russian than pro-Ukrainian. And he has not shied away from talking about how great Mr. Putin is, how they're in a good relationship. And there's more leaks about the Trump plan in essentially stopping Ukrainian aid, the military support to Ukraine as well. So unfortunately, right now, I'm not seeing Russia willing to go on the negotiating table. So how can we force them? How could Mr. Biden and NATO force Russia on the negotiation table and putting an end to this war, at least in the short term, and making sure the Ukraine comes out not from a disadvantage point of view, right? Because with Minsk 1 and Minsk 2, Ukraine was put on the negotiating table from a weak position, right? Which then allowed the Russians a few years later to rearm and start a new invasion in 2022. So as you guys can see, I pasted an image of all the ammunition depots and important other depots that Russia has on Russian territory. The ones that interest us the most are the ones in red with the star, and there's about 40 of them. So these are ammunition depots and arsenals storing shells, small arms, munitions, mortars, grenades, etc., etc. And really, if we want to force Russia to start talking about negotiations, Ukraine needs to be given the power to destroy the majority of Russian arsenals and ammunition depots to degrade Russian offensive capabilities. Last month, Ukraine successfully vaporized the Toropets arsenal, which was, according to the Russians, one of the most modern ammunition depots. It also stored over 30,000 tons, according to reports, 30,000 tons of weapons. That's a huge loss for the Russians. Some estimates say that Russia lost about 3 months worth of shells in that one single attack. And Ukraine also attacked 2 more. One that was a little bit more south in Oktyabrski, and I believe there was another attack in Rostov as well. But Russia in total right now has about 40 of these arsenals. So imagine if the West was to provide Ukraine the permission to use not only the Storm Shadows, but also the Taurus missiles from Germany. And we also know that Zelensky, from today's news, had requested the United States to provide Ukraine with Tomahawk missiles. And these are the ultimate long-range weapons that Ukraine could get, because they have a 2,000-kilometer range, which essentially would put any of these depots, arsenals, and factories within Russia within unlimited range for the Ukrainians. They could strike pretty much everything they want. In Moscow, St. Petersburg, Yekaterinburg, Chelyabinsk, Kazan, all the big cities in Russia would be under direct threat, where Russia is storing, whether it be ammunition depots, building weapons. This would be a huge game changer. And in a few weeks, by attacking all of these facilities, Ukraine could force Russia to say, okay, let's start talking. But unfortunately, right now, we're not seeing that. And I'm really hoping that after the US elections, because this signal must come from the United States first, the Biden administration will be decisive, and Mr. Biden will want to end his presidency with a good legacy. Because right now, it's been a catastrophe, right? His de-escalation management policy has been a disaster. And as a matter of fact, countries that are kind of sworn enemies of the United States, whether it be China, Iran, North Korea, Russia, they've grown stronger in their alliances and not weaker, because Biden has not been decisive enough, and his administration has always tried to go with the diplomatic route, which has failed at this stage. It's okay to try in the beginning with a diplomatic route, try to find a way to have discussions and compromises, but they're not going for compromises. Any of these dictatorships and authoritarian countries are not looking for compromises, especially if they know that they have the momentum right now. So that's the video for today, guys. One last thing I want to mention is that Zelensky is on a big tour right now. So this is why Zelensky is really going and meeting with Scandinavian countries. He went to Iceland today. He also met with delegations from Norway, because he knows that these countries, the Scandinavian countries and the Baltic countries, are very decisive. They understand the direct threat that Russia poses to European security. So that's why Zelensky is trying to go after the allies. They're really, really strong supporters of Ukraine, and hopefully they will provide more weaponry to Ukraine. We got some good announcements from Norway, from Iceland as well, from the Baltic states. So hopefully Ukraine will continue receiving help, even if the United States pulls out of the European security, with perhaps Trump being elected, and Ukraine continues to receive support from its biggest European allies. But that's the video for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys think about the South Korean Hyun-Moon 3 missiles. Do you think maybe potentially Seoul is going to provide them to Ukraine next year? Do you think that maybe the United States, perhaps in a sledgehammer moment, is going to provide Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine? Maybe Biden will come to his senses by the end of his presidency and give a few dozen, maybe a few hundred of them to Ukraine. But this would be a huge deterrent for the Russians. If Ukraine was to receive them, even if they were to receive them after the negotiations are over, there is some sort of peace deal, a truce between Russia and Ukraine, giving a few hundred of these could really change the calculation for Russia. They would know that Ukraine could easily strike any facility in Russia if they try to invade Ukraine again. This would be a huge deterrent for Ukraine as well. So let me know what you guys think, and I will see you in the next one. Slava Ukraini!